Some memories are buried for a reason, but the sound of the singing always finds a way back to the surface. I have resided in Arizona for the last 15 years of my life, but my previous existence was entirely different. I grew up in a tiny town located in the absolute middle of nowhere. I cannot tell you which side of the country it occupied or if it even remained within the borders of the United States. It was a secluded forest community surrounded by dense timber in every direction. The only detail I know with absolute certainty is the name of the place, Point Pine. I lived there for the first 10 years of my life before we relocated the summer after my 10th birthday. Once we departed, my parents never spoke of that place again. In fact, they functioned as if it never existed, and for them I suppose that was the truth. I do not blame them for their silence. I realized early on they were working hard to erase every memory of Point Pine. When classmates asked where I came from, I simply claimed to be from a small town they had never heard of. I also discovered that any inquiry about our old home resulted in immediate punishment. A few months after our move, my older sister Felicity prepared a school project regarding our family history. She wrote about her memories of Point Pine, but our mother discovered the papers and burned them in the backyard. When Felicity returned home that afternoon, our parents took her upstairs and I heard her crying out in pain every few minutes. I said nothing, and neither of us ever mentioned the town again until now. I am not sure what is triggering these recollections that I had locked away in the deepest parts of my mind. It might be the fact that my father passed away a week ago. Since his death, my mother has remained completely silent. She has not uttered a word or shed a single tear. She sent his remains away to an unknown destination, and I suspect he went back to Point Pine. I have started recalling the peculiar details of the town that seemed normal to us as residents at the time. I now realize those things were far from ordinary. One strange thing involved the local bakery. The owner, Mr. Terrence, always knew exactly what you intended to order before you spoke. The children whispered rumors that he was a magician who could read minds. When you paid for your goods, you did not leave a cash tip but instead provided an old item of clothing you had outgrown. There was a massive box by the register where everyone tossed old baby shoes and shirts. Every year on your birthday you were required to have blood work done at the local labs. We did not know the purpose of the tests or what they were seeking. We just knew the day started with a medical appointment. Every morning at 8:13 a system of speakers placed around the town like an amusement park would broadcast a wailing alarm. It ricocheted through the neighborhoods to wake everyone up. Parents would rush to pull their children out of bed as if the house were on fire. But the strangest event was the Point Pine monthly parade. It happened every month without fail on varying dates, and each time a high school student was chosen to participate. We were strictly forbidden from watching it. We could not look from the streets or the windows or even on television. It was the most enforced rule in town. You must never under any circumstance look at the parade. We always knew when it was beginning because a chorus of voices would start singing a melody like a church choir. It sounded like a nursery rhyme, and the voices seemed to come from the sky and the ground simultaneously. Once the music started, you had 5 minutes to get inside a building with a lock. My friend Lee and I decided to break the rules one August. We waited in the forest near the library to see the procession. When the singing grew loud, Lee looked through the brush while I stayed low. Suddenly he dove to the ground in a fetal position and screamed that they were eating a girl named Reed who had been chosen for the parade. He claimed she did not even care that she was being consumed. Lee grabbed me and forced me down so I could not look. He was absolutely terrified and began to weep. The voices grew louder and I heard them calling my name. They sounded like Reed. I kept my eyes tightly shut until the music faded and the townspeople emerged from hiding. When I helped Lee stand, he kept his head down. When he finally looked up, I saw dark bleeding holes where his eyes used to be. I spent minutes vomiting in the woods before leading him home.